Of all the inappropriate outbursts rapper Kanye West has made in the last several months and even years, he recently said one thing right: hurt people, implying that those who feel pain or suffering will in turn hurt others as a coping mechanism or a way to deal with their own sorrow. In an ideal world, we know that the opposite is best practice. When one is hurting, they should try to understand the root of their anguish and solve it. But that's not easy to do. And we know this is the case because if it were easy to solve issues of pain, there would be no racism, bigotry, anti-Semitism, or any other kind of hatred in our world. In addition to suffering at the core of one's damaging behavior, hatred more often stems from ignorance. In recent weeks, basketball player Kyrie Irving's promoted a film based on falsehoods that included a slew of anti-Semitic tropes, claiming that the Jews of today quashed the original Black Jews. This conspiracy, among others that Irving's has given stage to in previous years, are baseless and ill-informed claims that feed into ridiculous notions that Jews are running the media and the banks and somehow control the world. Jews are comprised of about 3% of the American population. The unfortunate reality is there is nothing new about anti-Semitism, and these kinds of falsehood are often perpetuated with time and given a new spin with each generation, but rely on the same unfounded fabrications that have always existed. These days, people with anti-Semitic views, according to Jonathan Greenblatt, the CEO of the American Defamation League, are feeling emboldened to act on their hate. They have given themselves permission to speak openly about their hatred and often act upon it as well. This comes at a time where our country is becoming increasingly aware of nuanced discrimination, and so continued anti-Semitism has no room in our society. So what does that mean for us? I turn to our Torah portion from this week, Chayei Sarah, the life of Sarah. At first glance, it may seem a bit unusual that this Torah portion begins with Sarah's death. So why, we ask, is this Torah portion called the life of Sarah? The first verse of Genesis 23:1 reads, ויהיו חיי שרה 100 שנה ו20 שנה ו7 שנים שני חיי שרה ותמת שרה בקריית ארבע. Sarah's lifetime, the span of Sarah's life, came to 127 years. She died in Kiryat Arba. Why would the Torah start with Sarah's lifetime, the span of Sarah's life? It seems superfluous and actually even somewhat repetitive. Well, according to Rashi, an important medieval French commentator, the repetition indicates that each year she lived was equally good. That sounds nice. But we know that Sarah lived through some serious hardships. Twice, Abraham, her husband, told Sarah to pretend to be his sister, once in Egypt and once in Gerar, to save Abraham's life so they wouldn't kill him and take her. Sarah spent most of her lifetime being infertile, albeit a promise from God to have many children. And to make matters more difficult, Abraham's handmaid, Hagar, did have a child. And finally, when Sarah does eventually become pregnant with Yitzchak, Abraham nearly sacrifices him to God. Thus, to say that her years were equally good is a stretch, wouldn't you say? So how can Rashi really make this claim? That her years were equally good? I'd like to impart some commentary atop of Rashi's commentary for a moment. What if we replaced the word good with meaningful? So her years were equally meaningful. When we hear the word good, we assume it's filled with delight and excitement at every turn, but we all know that's not real. A good life can be bad at times. The bad, or even the more neutral moments, lead us to turn inward and think about the potential good that could be. Leading a meaningful life can help us find our reason for living, our motivation to get up in the morning and make our lives and our world a better place. So when we say Sarah's life was good or meaningful, she was given many opportunities to create a reason for living and create a legacy that would last way beyond her time. And her legacy is all of us. We are her legacy that came after. So let us ask ourselves the same question in thinking about our own lives. What are the reasons we get up in the morning? And how do we find the inspiration to make our world a better place? I go back for a moment to those individuals who have made damaging remarks about our faith. How can our legacies affect this kind of hatred and ignorance in the world? And I'd like to suggest that one way is to embolden ourselves to not only be unapologetically Jewish, but to invite people into our homes to truly understand what Judaism's values hold. So they can not only talk about Judaism from an intellectual perspective, but from a personal and authentic place as well. The experience we share with them and the experience that we share with the people that we know. This means that we have to be comfortable enough in our own Judaism and own it in such a way that we'll be able to authentically bring people into those experiences. It means we have to know who we truly are and what we stand for in order to invite others to look in. We have to know what makes us Jewish. What does our Judaism look like? Maybe it means lighting the candles each and every Shabbat on a Friday night. Maybe it's expanding our comfort with Jewish texts and exploring what our tradition really says. Maybe we engage in social justice, but also take the time to understand the roots and fundamentals of why we participate in social justice. What does Judaism have to say about helping others? I often hear people say, I'm culturally Jewish, but not religious. Well, my friends, I have news for you. What's so beautiful and wonderful about our religion is that it is a religion, a faith, a culture, a language, an identity, a philosophy, a value structure, and I could go on for a long time. So there are many entry points to exploring what our Judaism means to each and every one of us, and there's room for all of us. To confront anti-Semitism, we must be steadfast in our own understanding of what Judaism offers, so that we never get bulldozed by ignorant slurs, and more importantly, help us focus on making our lives more meaningful and the world a better place. If I had Kanye West or Kyrie Irving's phone number, I would call them today and say, come join me for Nefesh Shabbat. Come witness the foundation of our faith and a service that is focused on turning inward, expressing gratitude, humbling ourselves, and gathering to support each other in community. I would invite them to my classes to show that our religious texts are not just words. They lead to actions. They lead to profound self-evaluation. I would invite them to my Shabbat dinner table to not only experience the food of my North African roots. As Jews, we are an extremely diverse people, but also allow them to engage in reflective conversations about all of our lives. And at this Shabbat table, I would help clarify falsehoods they have been made to believe are true. Alas, I don't have their contact information, but I can call out to my friends of other faiths and invite them into my Jewish experience. Creating dialogue and bridging differences are integral to our faith. Until we reach a day where hatred isn't rampant, we must all play a part in creating peace among all people, so that maybe the next generation can live in a world of love where all of their years will be good. Shabbat Shalom.